Name is Shreya, and I'm the founder of Memoa, which is a combination of memory, story, and nostalgia. It's a platform for collectors all around the world to share their favorite items in their collections and the memories and stories they have with them. Today, I'm here with Garrett Sander, the iconic creator of Monster High and one of my personal inspirations and heroes. He created one of the most beloved toy lines that we've ever actually seen that has spanned so many different backgrounds, collectors, all ages. And it's such a privilege to talk to you and talk about some of the favorite items in your journey as a collector.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first question, which is, can you describe your collecting journey? What got you into this world of toys and how did you get started and how has that kind of evolved from when you were a kid and then to where you are now?
I think for me it started because I never stopped buying toys. So I just sort of
Yeah.
just kept, even through like middle school and high school, I just kept going to Toys R Us and buying stuff. So it just sort of like became a collector because I never stopped buying toys. But I think the first line that like I really like wanted to collect every character was when I was younger, X-Men was really big, and so there was like the Toy Biz X-Men line that came out in the 90s, and I just remember like seeing all the characters on the back and wanting to collect all of them and go hunt and find them in the store. So I think that's really where like I remember it starting and wanting to collect stuff and then sort of snowballed from there.
And did you have a favorite X-Men or the one grail that you really wanted?
Uh, I remember there was a long drought because Storm was the very first female character. She's in the first line, and then it was like several ways before I got another one, and Rogue was the second one to come out. I remember just trying to hunt for her and then finding her at where I live. It's called the Westminster Mall. There was a KB in there, and you could see her in the window because they had a whole X-Men display in the front, and it was just like
Mhm.
running to the toy store to get her because it was finally out. So.
Very cool. And so, yeah, speaking of that, you talked about X-Men, but did you have any other brands or toy lines that ignited your passion to not only collect, but also eventually design your own toy line?
I it's I also I like love everything a lot of the times. There's like so many things that I like, but a lot of the stuff like growing up, I really loved Gem, the cartoon was really great. And like I
Mhm.
remember like I had some of them when I was a kid, but then like recollecting them later on too. Um and X-Men was really big. There was a lot of cartoons too that happened that maybe they weren't super popular, but I really liked them. There was one called Mummies Alive that was really cool. Um Skeleton Warriors, Captain Simian and the Space Monkeys, Sky Surfer Strike Force. All these like they lasted for like a season or two, but then they went away. But I loved cartoons and toys, and so if the cartoon had toys, I was in love with it.
Yeah, awesome. And so now kind of going into Monster High, right? What kind of initially sparked or kind of drew you to create Monster High? Where did the inspiration come from?
So I was working as a packaging designer at the time at Mattel. I was on the My Scene team, and
Which is also an amazing toy
yeah,
line, by the way. Yeah.
amazing dollar line. Yes, I was working on the packaging for My Scene, so I got to work on some packages for them, and they were looking to do another brand, and it's called a flanker brand. That's what My Scene was because it flanks Barbie, and it goes after. Sorry, my cat's also attacking me right now, so
That's so cute.
so
Yeah.
he might join the call.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Yeah.
So. Uh, My Scene was a flanker brand, and they wanted another flanker brand because it flanks Barbie. So it sort of goes after a girl who may not be into Barbie, but it still captures like that fashion uh, scene and style. It's just a different version to go after the girl who may not be into Barbie. And so we were brainstorming, and part of the brainstorm process was they gave money to like 13 and 14-year-old girls, and we followed them around the mall just to see what they bought and like what they thought was cool. And so one of the girls bought a Skull plush, and Skull like they're a cute little plush, and they just had like a skeleton on them. So they're black with a white skeleton, and their tagline was "Dead animals need love too." And I laughed. I was like, "Oh, what if it was like dead dolls need fashion too?" As we were like talking about it afterwards, and
Yeah.
everyone was laughing, like, ha ha ha. And they're like, "Mattel's never gonna make dead dolls." And
Yeah.
so, but I thought there was something there, and one of the marketing people thought it was like kind of cool too. So I just thought about it that night, and as I was thinking about it, one of the things that they were trying to do too is, while My Scene was super popular, they found out that girls are having a hard time telling the difference between some of the characters because they all use the same face mold. And so I
Mhm.
was like, okay, well, if we wanted to make sure that they're collectible, they need to be different. Because they started off it was like a zombie high school, and I was like, well, they're all the same, and we want to make sure they look different. I was like, well, why aren't they just different monsters going to high school together? And so I
Yeah.
sketched up Frankie that night, and that's why. I mean, it's a different she doesn't look like she finally did, but we used the date of her very first sketch to be her birthday because that was technically the day that she was created. So
So was Frankie the first ever Monster High doll that was created then? Yeah.
yeah, Frankie was the first one created. So Frankie Draculaura and Claudine were sort of the first three who got put together at the same time, but Laguna was part of the original design too. And then Clea was originally Operetta. So Operetta was originally the sort of the mean girl. But there was concern that girls want to know who the Phantom of the Opera was, so we switched it to be a mummy for because a mummy's a more well-known monster.
Okay, that's very cool. Yeah, I mean, I have my G1. I don't know if you can see her, but she's my favorite Monster High doll of all time. Oops. Patsy Claro, because I'm like
Oh,
obsessed with the color green, like if you can't tell. And so I hunted everywhere and I was like, they finally made a green Monster High doll. And I was like, hey, let me have her. Yeah. And so you actually talked a lot about this, but I think what Monster High does really well is like celebrate the individuality and embracing the flaws, and that it's you're not just part of like a copy and paste kind of group, right? You're everybody's individual. So how did your own experiences or your own kind of perception influence like Monster High's theme of embracing everyone?
so I think it just came naturally with the brand because they were monsters. We had to find a way to because as we pitched the idea internally, everyone's like, girls don't like monsters. Like in the list of things girls like, it's at the very bottom, it's aliens and monsters right above it. So it's like
Yeah.
how but there are a lot of people I think thought they would never appeal to girls. We tried to figure out how do we make it appealing to girls. And it's just, yeah, they look different, but there's a lot of similarities between it too. So it was playing up, okay, if they each have a freaky flaw that describes maybe something that a human is feeling that they can relate to, and just make them, like it's a twist on what it's like being a teenager instead of just being a regular
Mhm.
teenager. You're a monster teenager, but you still face all the same type of stuff. And then so when we would develop all of the characters, we would do like a full bio for them. So what monster we start off with like, okay, what monster types we want to go after, and then what freaky flaws, could they have, and then what fashion style works with that. And then we try to start naming them and picking and putting things together. And we do a lot of research into the different monster types, then what the fashion style would be, with the personality to make sure it fit perfectly to bring that character to life in the best possible way.
Yeah, and I love how Monster High spans different cultures too. I mean, I think you can see in the back skeleton for Dia de los Muertos,
Yeah.
and seeing how Monster High has fans not just in the United States but all over the globe. It's really inspiring how it was able to grab different cultures and put them together.
Yeah, that was one of the fun things too, as the brand got bigger and became more global. Then we could reach out and pull in those global monsters too. So that was a lot of fun researching those and like where they came from and stuff like that, and bringing in more monsters to Monster High.
Yeah. And then so speaking of, I know that you also designed another type of toy, which was oh my gosh, why is my name? I'm tripping. I can visualize it right now. Vamp Stephanie.
Oh yeah,
Gravestone
Gravestone
Guardians. Yes.
Guardian. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Can you talk about Gravestone Guardians and what inspired you to create them? I mean, they're really cool and they're like that at that nexus of like action figure and doll.
Yeah, so I like to call them action dolls. But I grew up with like He-Man and She-Ra, and so like I really loved He-Man and She-Ra. One, because they were twins and I'm a twin, so I thought that was really cool.
And your brother's Darren, right?
Yeah, my brother Darren. Yeah, he
Yeah.
helped with a lot of stuff too on Monster High because he came up with the tagline for "He just got fabulous." So
Oh wow.
yeah, that's cool. But like I really loved like the way She-Ra was like, yes, there's some sculpted stuff, but then they had soft good stuff. So it was like that was like their armor that you could swap out, but then they had like the brushable hair and stuff like that. I thought that was really cool. And then even Sailor Moon did that in the 90s with their adventure dolls, where they had like the rooted hair, they had their sculpted boots and gloves. And then there was Golden Girl and the Guardians of the Gemstones that came out at the same time as She-Ra. And I just like the combination of the two of them together. And so I wanted to create something that sort of blended that plus my love of monsters, plus my love of sort of like that superhero slash warrior type stuff. And I brought all those together to, sort of create Greystone Guardians where they're like glamorous warrior monsters and stuff like that. So it's my passion project. So, I it's nice that I get to spend as much time as I want on it and take it, take my time, really flesh it out. So it's fun to post also all the behind the scenes stuff on Instagram so people can follow along, sort of see how much
Yeah.
work it goes into making a toy.
Yeah.
Um, that's one of the things too, is like even Monster High, we started it in 2007, but it didn't come out until 2010. So a lot of times,
Oh,
there can be long development times or things can get delayed. And so there's a lot of work that goes into getting these toy lines out.
yeah. That's really cool. And again, yeah, we'll link the project. I think it was on Starter Kit. and I was following along every step of the way. Or
Oh,
backer kid,
exactly.
sorry, my bad,
Yeah.
backer kid.
We didn't hit funding, so I'm actually revising everything. So I'm hoping to post soon. I've been reworking the characters and stuff like that because I'm looking. Originally, they were all going to have individual body sculpts, but it's very expensive to do that.
Oh yeah.
I'm looking at like a shared body, but they'd all have unique heads and then they're unique soft goods. So that way I can make more, so you can buy more characters at once rather than just one at a time.
One at
So
a time. That's a really smart idea. Yeah. So in your experience again, because we're talking about this concept of like memory, story, and nostalgia, right? Do you have any favorite stories or any favorite kind of anecdotes or something that really stood out to you and is memorable in the process of either creating Monster High, creating Gravestone Guardians, or yeah, what are your favorite stories that you'd want to share?
oh, my favorite stories of collecting.
I
I
know
think
I
it's
put you on the spot there,
no, it's
but
fine. I think it's always fun, like when you find those that one toy that you sort of been looking for that you didn't think you'd ever really find, and it's like a really great deal because there was a, a company called Olmec Toys, and they did like the black versions of like He-Man. So they had a line called Sunman, and then they did a black version of She-Ra, and she was called Butterfly Woman. And I don't remember it coming out when I was a kid because it was in like the mid '80s, and I was still pretty little.
Mhm.
Um, but the I always wanted a butterfly woman figure, and they just are so expensive because they're so rare. But I just happened to be looking on eBay one day, and I was like, oh, let's see if Butterfly Woman pops up. And Butterfly Woman popped up, and this was only like 2 years ago, and it was from like a Salvation Army listing on eBay or a Goodwill listing. I can't remember which one it was, but it was $7.99 buy it now, and that was like it's like hundreds of dollars you have to pay to get her. And I was like, I clicked it, not thinking, I was like, is this real? I was like, I didn't think it was real until she
I'm like gonna get yeah, yeah.
came in the mail and she was in box, perfect condition. I was like, I couldn't believe that, so sort of getting those grail type things is really fun too. And then I think favorite stories as well. I mean, Monster High every season was just always so much fun to be like, okay, what new monsters are we going to introduce? Who do we want to bring in? And so we'd have all these concepts for different monsters that we want to pull in. We, pick our favorites and then start building them out. And so that was what was really fun, was sort of like, okay, who are the new students who are going to be coming to Monster High was really fun. And then
Mhm.
how do we take the existing students and give them new looks that would make you still want to keep buying them, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite Monster High doll? Are you allowed to answer that or character?
I always say it's like trying to pick your favorite kid.
Yeah.
Because each one I think has like a little part of me in them since I oversaw the brand for so long. But there's some that I'm especially proud of, like because we really tried to push the envelope, and I think the team did a really good job doing that too. Like I didn't design Venus, but I thought it was really cool. We were like one of the first ones to do a doll with like her part of her head shaved.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I have her right here actually.
yeah,
She has
so
her little head shaved
it's her
right
little
here.
shaved head. That was
Yeah.
really cool. We got to get away with like, more piercings in the ears. We had
Yeah.
characters with tattoos. And then, we got to do like River. I'm really proud of River 6 because you can see her bones inside of her arms and her legs. And that was a
hmm
challenge to do. And I think part of that too was because I loved action figures growing up. I took a lot of stuff that I saw in action figures growing up and play with and just tried to do, okay, how can we do it in doll form and how does that come to life and how can we do it, sort of glamorously as well. So that was really fun to sort of bring the monsters to
Yeah.
life in that way.
And I know that you do a lot of conventions, and I'm sure getting to meet all the collectors and all the different fans when they come up is a great experience too for you.
Oh yeah, I always say it's the beast part of creating Monster High is meeting all of the fans. So I love hearing stories and stuff like that. It's amazing to hear how much people love Monster High. So.
Yeah. Awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and go into your collection on Memoa. But the first question I'll ask is, I know that I reached out to you about Memoa, but what made you decide to join and upload your collectibles? Because it was so awesome. All of our users were like, "Oh my gosh, that's Garrett Sander, actually." Um,
I like that it was a different take. Like I have some collector apps where it's like you scan the barcode and it just sort of goes in so you can see if you have it. But this was cool because like it's your picture and then it's also thinking back, oh, when I got this, how was I feeling and what's the memory that's tied to it? That was really cool. So I mean it takes a little bit more time, but it's also fun to like go through and actually think about like why did I like it? Why is it important to my collection and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why we created it because it's like there's nowhere else I can't share this on like, regular Facebook or regular Twitter, right?
Yeah.
But getting to connect with other people who also had those same memories and stories has been always a blast. So I'll
Yeah.
go ahead and get started here. So first, we kind of want to go through your profile because you uploaded things that span not only just dolls, but also, figures like your Wildcats collection. So
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and get into it. I mean, first of all, out of all the things you've listed in your profile, right? What are your favorite brands and toy lines, and what are some of the stories behind them?
Oh, it's so hard because this is like not even like a drop in the bucket of the stuff that I collect, but
Yeah.
I wanted to start somewhere, and get stuff out there. So I will say that I feel like Gem is a big influence just because the cartoon was so fun, the dolls were so pretty, and like I love their fashions and stuff like that. It was the 80s will always be like the 80s, late 80s, no, it will always be like a fashion inspiration for me. And so like I just love their clothes and the way that they're done. And even then Gem was really ahead of her time in the way that she posed because her articulation in her arms at her elbows and her knees was hidden. So like she had the click knees, but she had click elbows too. And then her knees actually, they did it in glitter and gold gem. So they could bend, but then you could twist them too so she could cross her legs. So like they were really
Mm,
trying to improve articulation even then. So you could pose her more realistically. And I always thought that was really cool. And then like all
yeah.
of her accessories, like that Rock and Roadster is still one of my favorite cars ever. So
And that's the bright green car that we see in the
yeah,
photo right here. But
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love seeing the color bright green, so that's amazing. Yeah. Um, so that's Gem and the holograms. And then if we go to your Monster High collection,
Oh
we
yeah,
can
so I
yeah.
only have one in there. Like I have everything, but I just started with the first one because it was funny. Monster High was like kept top secret, so nobody knew about it. So I was always Google searching because this was back in 2010. So I don't think there were Google alerts just yet, but I was always searching to see if anything had popped up. And one day it popped up and it showed Toys R Us had listed it. But they weren't supposed to be out yet. It was like May, but they weren't supposed to be out until June, I think, or something like, or July. And I was like, it's listed, and then it showed in stock, and I was like, it didn't say which one you were going to get. It was just like you get one of four dolls. I think that's what it was. Or maybe I picked Frankie. I can't remember. It was a long time ago. It was almost 25 years ago now, or it was 25 years ago now. Wow. But I just went ahead and ordered just to see if it would actually come because I wanted to see. And Frankie showed up. And so then I just went ahead and I didn't tell anyone at work, but I photographed her and I posted it to my personal Flickr account. They just had a username that nobody knew it was me. And then another doll collector got the rest of them. So I just got Frankie, and then the other doll collector, I think it was Vinny Vidi Dolly, I think is what her username is.
Oh
But she
yes,
got
actually, yeah, yeah. She's
yeah, she got the rest of them and posted on her account. She was taking pictures of them too, and so people just started going crazy talking about it. So it was fun to see. Like, I want to see what the response was, and so it's cool to be able to see the response, a little bit early. And then it also, I think, helped generate a little bit of buzz for when they finally came out. And so later on, I told people at work, I was like, "Oh yeah, that was me. I ordered it because I saw it, posted the pictures." Um, but it was really cool just to like,
so this
because
is the
I
original, like this is the
yeah,
first
this is
ever. Oh
yeah,
my
that's
God.
the original monster. And what happened was Toys R Us wasn't supposed to list yet, but back then they would send like a sample, an assortment so they could weigh everything for shipping. So they got like one of each doll and they're weighing them for shipping, but they're not supposed to get listed, but they accidentally listed them. So they're like the first four dolls that were released out into the world just a couple of months early before everything hit
Wow.
shelf. So it was kind of
And
nice because it was like one of those like leaks almost, or like a sneak peek, and I think it just helped generate some buzz. So
oh yeah. And how did you keep her in such great, I mean, in such great condition all these years, right?
oh,
Um,
well, this one I opened up. So this is the picture from back in 2010, but I
oh
opened her up.
wow.
I took pictures of her. So open, I photographed all of her accessories and stuff like that. I did like the whole spiel because I wanted everyone to see all of the details and stuff that we put into them.
Yeah,
But
very
I still
cool.
do have ones in package. So I have the original ones in package still. But the rubber bands unfortunately give away. So sometimes I go back in and I'll redo the rubber bands just because I started as a packaging designer, so I know how to do some of that
Oh
stuff.
yeah, that's a
So
really
I'll
cool,
fix the
yeah.
rubber bands so it holds and stuff like that. But I know now they call them Dennison clips that will hold in, and those don't really degrade over time. Like a rubber band will let go, but these
Yeah.
new ones will hold them in place. So
But they're really hard to get out.
yeah,
I've
they
had
are.
experience. You have to like
You got to
rip
be
it. Yeah.
careful. You got to be careful of it.
Yeah.
But I was lucky.
Um,
I got to design the original packaging too. So I did the original packaging and I worked on the dolls. So
and I know this because the Cree Productions recently came out and everyone was like they're in love with the way, the original packaging and the stripes. I know that a lot of these collectors they keep it in box because of how awesome the packaging is.
yeah, it was really fun to do. I had a lot of fun working on the packaging and the brand. I think it was just nice to like holistically getting to work on everything because it doesn't usually happen. Like usually it's a separate designer who designs the packaging than what the product is. But I kind of got to do the whole thing. I feel like it was fun to do to holistically do it. So these sort of Trapper Keeper inspired packages. So it was very cool. And then the lines, even though I think I was supposed to mimic like blue line paper that you write on, and then just having some fun design elements hanging in there and stuff like that, and pulling in some monster things like chains and things like that, to give it sort of this little twist to it.
Yeah. Awesome. That's actually really incredible. And one day we hope to see the rest of them when
Yes, yes.
you take the photos. And then going into the superhero dolls, which we've kind of highlighted here, right? So again, you talked about that convergence of action figures and dolls, creating these action dolls. Of these, do you have a favorite or a standout that you really, wanted to get and you finally have? Yeah.
I really loved because back when I was growing up, there was no internet, so you didn't know when things were coming out, or maybe there'd be a booklet that would show you and you'd be able to see like things that might be coming. But a lot of times you didn't know what was new until it was actually on shelf. And so when I remember seeing like Storm, and they did these 12-inch collector's lines. So they did Storm Rogue, they did like Wolverine, Spider-Man, Ghost Rider, a bunch of these ones. And like I always loved like the 12-inch scale too. So I was super excited to be able to collect these. And then, with action figures, because they were just all plastic and like they didn't do like swappable soft goods kind of like Shearer was. With these ones, you could at least swap their outfits. So you had their superhero outfit and their civilian outfit, which was really fun. So I really enjoyed those. And I still have them in my collection. I have in box and out of box, and I have them on they're displayed. You can't see like behind these toys, but I'm looking at toys and over to the side.
They're over here, they're over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 360 toys.
I love that. I like moved my laptop, so it's like this is my one collection shelf, but it's been really awesome. And yeah, seeing Rogue and I think like toys in general have you collected throughout your life then, not just your childhood? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I've collected throughout my life. And like I think my collection ebbs and flows. Like I'll go through stuff where like, every now and then you got to make room for new stuff. So you decide, okay, what am I going to keep? What am I going to get rid of? But when you get rid of stuff, it just helps fuel like another collection or adding to a current collection. So I think that's fun too. And like, but I always love superheroes too. So having like superheroes,
Yeah.
I was like doing She-Hulk for the She-Hulk show was really cool because She-Hulk's never had a doll. She's had action figures, but she never had a doll. So that was like the first She-Hulk one. I've been a fan of She-Hulk. I read her comics when I was a kid and stuff like that. And then there's also like shows that like Totally Spies, who they got like a small doll line here in the US. They got more doll lines in other countries, but I remember these ones being in the US and I had to order them online. This is back when online shopping first started. So you didn't get to
Mhm.
really, you saw pictures, but you couldn't see them in stores. It was like you're ordering it from small places. And these ones I really liked. This company also did a doll line called Earth to Jane, which was a really pretty doll line. I think I have one of them left. But they did really nice. The details are really nice, and I love the cartoon, and it's actually coming back now. So like still having them in my collection and the cartoon coming back is very exciting. So, and then I don't always keep everything from everything that I collect. So sometimes when I go through, I'll pick my favorite character. So like that's why Cordelia is there. I don't have all of my witch dolls, but Cordelia was my favorite, so I kept her. And I love the way they did their wings, the printed like
Mhm.
sea plastic. And then the face sculpts were just really beautiful on those too. So I had to keep one in my collection.
Yeah, so going into that, so have you drawn, I'm sure you've drawn inspiration from other doll lines that you loved growing up and how they like, informed Monster High and Gravestone Guardians?
Yeah. I mean, I think like when you're growing up and seeing so much stuff and especially collecting, I think everything sort of like there's like a little bit of everything. It's like an amalgamation of all the things that you loved. But one of the things that I loved about Monster High that I hadn't really seen people do a lot of is we got to do a lot of characters in our line where a lot of doll lines there's usually like four girls, and
Hmm.
that's and
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
one or two will come in every now and then, but we really got to do like we'd have our core line, which was like our same characters that repeat over, but we get to do like the new Scaremester or Back to School, and that'd be like a whole new cast of characters coming in where we got to do new monsters. Because I think we had like over 75 different characters that we made into dolls, which is a lot for a doll line. Like action figures, that happens all the time, but doll lines don't really get a ton of character breadth. So that was really exciting to do.
Yeah. And then we're going into your figures, right? And
Yeah.
so let me go ahead and find them. So this is can you talk more about Wildcats? It's my first time hearing of them. Maybe
Oh,
that's just
so
because yeah.
Wildcats was a comic book, and this is a sort of around the time X-Men was really big too. It was a
Hmm.
couple of years after X-Men had gotten really big in the 90s. And so people were trying to emulate that with other stuff. But Wildcats was a pretty fun comic book that I read, and then it turned into a cartoon. And so then they got their own action figure line. It only lasted a couple seasons, but the sculpts were so beautiful. So they are sculpted by a company called Varner Studios, and they have an Instagram. And if you don't follow it, you should, because they did a lot of like 80s and 90s toys, and they still sculpt today. And they actually do the Begoth dolls. So those ones, and they're bringing them back too. So
Oh,
that's
oh yeah,
exciting.
yeah, yeah, the Beagle Dolls, yeah.
Yeah. And so, but the sculpts are just beautiful on them. So the articulation's a little limited, but at the same time, like that's enough to pose them and have fun with the posing. But they just stand on your shelf and look beautiful. And if you scroll to the right, there's one named Voodoo. And she has my absolute favorite
Yeah,
face
let's find
for a
her.
female
Oh, this
character.
one, yeah.
Yeah, the purple one. So her face sculpt and like her hair, it's just so comic book, like the little sweep in it and like the hole cut out. Like I had never seen that before. And I was like, oh my God, her hair is so cool. And then her face sculpt, they just did such a good job in painting it for back in the 90s. It just was beautiful. So it's still one of my favorites. And I have them, I can actually, they're displayed on my shelf. I can look at them right now. So
That's so cool. And so the swoop in her hair it holds like it's a
yeah, it's sculpted that way. But I always love, I'd never seen a toy line do like the cutout in her hair, but that was just so like when they draw the hair for the comics, there's always those little cutouts and like the hair's connecting back together. And so the first
yeah,
time seeing it in 3D was really cool. And I remember
very
like,
cool.
oh my God, her hair is so cool.
No, oh yeah, and hair is like a huge part of Monster High. I mean, from the different representation, Venus with her braids and also all the different aspects, I think hair is like one of the coolest things. I remember when I was playing with dolls, it always do their hair differently. That's was my
Yeah.
whole thing. Um, and yeah, and so I also see that in this kind of toy line, you have the comics, or are these like little mini comics with them?
So they came with trading cards, but then they gave bios for every character. And that's sort of what He-Man had that too. He-Man had mini comics and She-Ra had mini comics. And so that was one of the things with Monster High is to help kids get introduced to the world of Monster High. We wanted there to be like we didn't know if we were going to get any entertainment with it. So we eventually were able to get a YouTube series of Flash animation that launched around the same time as the dolls. But in case you didn't see YouTube, because it's not like everyone was on YouTube back then, when you bought your doll, you got home, you opened up, you'd have her diary to read so you could
Mm-hmm.
know her better and sort of start to see what the world of Monster High felt like. And then all of the characters had full bios on the back. Now, this was when we could do full English packaging. A lot of stuff now is multiple language just so it could be shared amongst a lot of countries. So it gets reduced down a little bit. But we try to, give bios. So like if you're in store and you're like, what is Monster High? You could turn it over and you'd learn so much right away. Because in testing, we found out people just want to learn more about Monster High. So we're trying to give them as much information at Monster High from the moment they picked up the doll to get them interested and then wants to know more about it and, hopefully get into the brand.
That's very cool. Yeah, I remember those little pocket diaries too. Like what my name is, and then like what their favorite subject in school was, and like
Yeah.
yeah, and I also love all the lore. Oh my gosh, the lore is I think so much
And
of Monster High is about the lore.
And Eric Hardy wrote most of them, but there were a couple other writers like Elaine Gant. She wrote some of them, and we had some fun copywriters. But they really tried to make sure that when we released like a line, like there was a through story through all the diaries that connected all the characters together that come out at the same time, and then also tidbits to learn about the characters as you're reading about it. So it was always fun to do that. And I read every single diary, gave comments on them, and then I actually most of the line, I think up until the end, I laid out all the diaries too. So I laid them all out to make sure that they looked right, that they were aligning right, and then I could check everything to make sure it was written right too. So we wanted to make sure there weren't any errors. So that was always the hardest.
Yeah, yeah. And I love the little puns you come up with, like fantastic or bear. What is it, Beastus? Like
Yes.
they're so cute. Yeah,
Yeah, we always had a lot of fun with the puns. So.
yeah. And so looking through your collection and anything else you have uploaded, anything else you want to highlight here? Any other cool
Oh,
things?
there's some like there's the Greystone Guardian, so and then
Yeah.
there's some of the inspirations too. Like I didn't get Shira up in there, but I have some Shira stuff too. But I just love the 5.5 to 6 inch scale. I always sort of love it because it also lets you do like accessories, like you can have the horses or the vehicles or the play sets. Like that was really fun. And for Golden Girl and Guardians of the Gemstones, I was lucky enough to find a Palace of Gems, which is like it's a very rare play set, but it's absolutely beautiful. It's gigantic. It opens up so big. It's so hard to find a place to like display it, but
Yeah.
that's from when I was living in Australia and I had a nice big toy room and I had it sitting up on top of something. But it was really cool to have them all displayed in there. And they're really nice figures. They're made by Gloob. They came out at the same time as She-Ra. And then there's just some weird ones too with the popularity of He-Man and She-Ra. Like now I don't think we get as many like knockoff dolls in stores. You can find them online and stuff like that. But there used to be a lot of like knockoffs or similar to that came from stores. So this is one that I just thought was hilarious called Celestra, Queen of the Transforming Dolls. Like it's just this robot thing that goes over her face and opens up, and she has rooted hair, and her arms move and her legs move. Uh,
Yeah.
there's just some weird, crazy, fun ones, and so I always think these weird toy lines I like a lot too because there's something funny there and clever, where they're trying to find something similar. And then I love independent fashion dolls too, or
Because
smaller
you get
toy.
to support the creators. Yeah.
Yeah, so like Fabiola is a line. by Mike Buse, and I apologize, Mike, if I pronounce your last name wrong. That's Fabiola. He's, got her body sculpted, and she was made by a toy company in Spain, like the way they used to get dolls made there. So she's like solid plastic. She feels really cool. And her sculpt is just beautiful and is very like 1950s and 60s inspired stuff. And so I have a few of his dolls. They're right here next to me on a shelf that's next to my desk. Uh,
Hmm.
and they're just beautiful. And the clothes are amazing. And then the middle's Larvae. And this is actually done by someone I used to work with at Mattel named Oscar. He's an amazing designer. And this is just so funny. It's sort of like,
The
what,
little shoe on her tail.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's, inspired by Barbie, of course, but it's this funny twist where she's, this cute little fashion maggot. um,
Yeah.
and it's just hilarious, and I love it. I love these weird sort of things. And then Amani, she's by the same company that did Butterfly Woman. And I remember seeing her in stores, and she was just such a beautiful doll. And I had a couple of them when I was younger, and then I don't remember this one, but I got her maybe a year ago just because I loved her outfit. It's so late 80s, early 90s fashion. And she looks like, like a princess pop star type thing. And so I just had to have her. And then the next two are the Rune doll by Isabel Anderson. So Isabel is a sculptor that I found actually on Instagram, and I started following her. And she sculpted. I wanted to do like a little vinyl character, and she sculpted it for me. So I've been working on that too. But then she came out with the doll, and I had to have it because she did such a great job on it. I love like the expression on her face, and she's just so cute. So
So
there's,
on the left are the original designs then, or like the,
yeah. So those are her sketches, and then that's the doll. So those sketches are on the package for her too. So when you open her up, that's the front of the package. So yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love how we can highlight like, independent, smaller artists here, and
Yeah.
it's a
And
beautiful job of doing that.
and
Yeah.
Rune is still available. So
Okay, everyone check out Rune.
yeah, check out Rune. So
Yeah, Rune dolls, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I love the outfits. I love the fashion behind this. So I love those outfits so much. And then we have, yeah, some of your miscellaneous dolls
I'm missing
here.
this. I didn't know what to categorize them. This is Gorgeous Creatures. So this is a line that Mattel did, I think, in 1979. And I don't remember this line. I just came across it later on when I was collecting, I think in high school or college when the internet started and you could research this type of stuff and find out about it. And they're anthropomorphic, glamorous dolls. There's Princess Pig, is it Miss Cowbell or Cowbell, Miss Giddy Up, and Miss Heavenly Hippo. And they were just so weird, so out there that I just had to have them. And I think they're just absolutely hilarious. So, and they had like brand new body sculpts too. So they have
Oh,
like,
wow.
and they have sculpted on like I don't bustiers almost like it's very sort of sexy lingerie underneath for them, but they're shorter and they're more curvaceous too, which was interesting because not a lot of they didn't do a lot of
Yeah.
new body types back then, so everything could share fashion and stuff like that. So I
Mhm.
thought they were interesting take, and so like I love them. So
Yeah. This is an amazing overview of your collection, and I know this is probably just like a small marginal
it's a
portion
very
of it.
very tiny portion, but it's been fun going through everything and like uh reminiscing about what it was like when I bought it and stuff like that. So it's been a lot of fun going through and
Yeah, and we're
thinking
looking
about
forward
my
to seeing
collection.
even more from
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
especially as you continue to build out your own collection. I know that that's also an ongoing process. It
Yeah.
never stops, does it? Like,
No, it
I'm
never
like, that's
stops.
not enough.
Yeah. But it's fun to because sometimes like you buy stuff and you display it and it's fun to look at it, but it's fun to go back and actually think about it too. And then put a little story along with it of what it was like when you bought it. So
Yeah, very cool. So now, if we go back and kind of take a step back here, looking back at your journey as a collector and a designer, what are
mhm.
you most proud of? Like, what is the thing that you'll be always the most proud of? Um,
I think Monster High will be the thing that I'm always most proud of. And just getting it out there because there was naysayers, and I mean with everything when you're working at a big company it's always a risk to do something, but I think there's always a risk in doing anything, so it could succeed or it could not, you never know. And so just getting it out there because I think there was a lot of like it's never going to work monster dolls, and just we got lucky, we were sort of flying under the radar working on it for a lot of times. There were other things happening at Mattel that they were working on, and so we were this little team just working on Monster High, and then it finally got to launch and went out there and just became even bigger than what any of us hoped. Like I just
Mhm.
wanted it to be successful enough to hopefully get like 3 or 4 seasons out of it to make dolls. I never expected it, it went from G1 went from, 2010 all the way to 2016. So it lasted 6 years, it's
Mhm.
a long time for a doll line. So
Yeah,
yeah.
that's awesome. And how do you think toys and like, figures and dolls in general have transformed, right? You were there in the 80s when and how do you think it's transformed to where it is today?
I mean, one nice thing is manufacturing process has changed, so you can do more stuff. I think we can, like the decoing is better. It used to be like physically hand painted, and now with sometimes with machines you can get nicer looking stuff. Not always. Sometimes it's not the best, but it's a lot of things have improved. Like the detail that you can get in tooling has improved and stuff like that. And then I do think like it's hard because as costs go up, sometimes things get stripped away. So that's been one of the difficult things to see where it was really cheap to make toys in Asia and stuff like that. And as you know, rising costs go up, they pull things out to make it so they can force anything, but it's the same price, but you're just getting less. So I like to see some of that change, but that's like more of a global issue than that we're not really going to solve making toys, you know. But there's still a lot of companies out there doing really cool stuff and doing what they can to maximize
Mhm.
you know, what they've learned and all the new technologies that are coming out.
Yeah, and I think speaking of that, sometimes it's hard because when Toys R Us started closing down, right? And seeing
Yeah.
kids like move into this increasingly digital space, the I'm glad that, these doll lines persist because at the end of the day, I feel like we're all kids at heart, right? And so
Yeah,
even as people are like getting into the iPads and like, all the different things, I really hope the childhood, still like,
yeah.
prevails.
I think there's still something to even with like I think it's great to have fun on the digital worlds and stuff like that, but I always go back to it's really fun to have something in your hands to look at and hold and you know manipulate and see what it's like. And I think there'll always be sort of that physical touch that people want to still. So and you know there's all these stories now which a lot of my friends in the industry have known for a few years that there's a lot of adults who buy toys.
Oh
Um,
yeah, they're
you
the
know, and it's
primary
like
buyers, yeah.
yeah, now all the stuff is showing like they buy more toys than kids, you know, and it was like before it was like if you were adult who collect toys, you did this weird thing, you know. So, but now it's like I don't think it's weird to buy toys. Like I think you can keep collecting something that brings it's fun. It reminds you of being a kid, and there's so many cool things now like that you might love as an adult that has a toy line to it, and you're like, oh, I want to have that because I love this thing so much that I want to have toys I can put on my shelf and display it, and it brings me joy. So
Little cattail. I
yeah.
love that. Awesome. And then what do you think, like, at Momoa, we're all about preserving memories and stories, right? So one of the last questions is like, what is the value of having a platform or a place of where you can hold and share memories and celebrate them together, especially with these?
I think it's really great because like in the if you have friends who collect, you'll talk about toys and like maybe you go to like the little cons and stuff like that or a show and you get to meet up with people and talk about it. But and there's chat boards and stuff, but not it's always like it kind of veers off of topic. And so this kind of gets to focus on here's the doll that I bought and here's what I like, and you get to share it with a whole community that is into collecting just like you. And I think what's fun too is like for me, like, with people posting Monster High dolls, I can read what they thought about it when they first got it, what they liked, what they didn't like. And it's always good to hear that stuff. You want to hear, what they liked and what they didn't like too, just so about stuff. And so it's really interesting to see, like what, for me, seeing the Monster High stuff and what it means. And then even seeing other lines that I collected when I was young, and be like, oh yeah, that person, felt the same way as I did
Yeah.
about seeing this in store and thought it was so cool, so.
Yeah. Monster High is the biggest community on Momoa. Like we have like thousands of Monster High dolls because
Oh, that's
it's
awesome.
so fun to see that everybody at one point in collecting dolls or toys has touched or has experienced Monster High.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I really love that Monster High got so many people into collecting. So I think that that's really cool. I feel like it introduced a lot of people to like how fun toy collecting can be. So
Anything else you'd like to share? Anything
thank
you'd like to add?
thank you for this platform. It's really fun and exciting to do. And it's like it's nice to have like a little something like when you're just sitting watching TV, like, oh, I can add a couple dolls, to
Yeah.
Memoa and post them. So I've been trying to like go through and collect my photos and save to folders and organize that so I can just grab a photo and put it up and then type up a little bit about it. So
Yeah. Part of
yeah.
the reason, well, the reason why we created it, right, is because right now a lot of collecting is like purely transactional. Like this is how much it's worth. And then you
Yeah.
have like the scalpers and scammers just going and try and take advantage of that. And so much of it's like, well, this is it at its price point. And what you kind of forget is like there's like tangible like memories and stories and the feelings behind it.
Yeah.
Especially in like, when the doll line like really blows up, you see people immediately grabbing the doll and just holding it. You're like, but that's not the point of it. The point is to buy the doll and experience it and share it with
Enjoy it.
others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's what's really cool about it. I've never seen a site that's done something like this before. So
Thank you, Garrett.